Okay, everybody.
Long enough, you're not. So. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Our next case is the Windy River Aquarium, and Malin is the primary reviewer.
Thank you, Craig. Windy River Aquarium had a fairly clean inspection. The team came in, they had several points of achievement we can ask them about. The expertise of the life support system, leadership, and team members is evident in the water quality. That can be a tough thing for an aquarium. There's very good collegial collaboration between animal care, education, and operations staff. The diverse animal collection presented well and was in good health. And the facility is clean and well cared for at all levels. Maintenance is conducted in a timely way and is good support from the city operations and maintenance staff when needed. But we might want to ask them about their conservation plan that was called out as exceptional, as well as their education plan. They did have some areas of concern. There were 5 areas of concern. The aquarium's animal welfare program assessments have not been fully implemented, so we want to ask them about that. And the aquarium does not currently have a written DEAI program. All of it is, we've sometimes have seen the live action drills, they had problems getting all of those completed. Also, the salary levels for the employees are lower than similar local facilities. And that seems to be impacting their ability to recruit and retain qualified staff. And then finally, they had rust observed in the sea lion holding room. So we'll see what they have to say about that.
Okay, thanks, Malin. Questions for Malin before we visit them?
Looking at the pictures that the committee put together, it wasn't listed as a concern, but there's a picture of a sloth being used in the aquarium and a little girl sort of touching it. What is that about?
The committee included that photograph to draw our attention to it. They weren't sure. Apparently they do have some programs that do allow close contact, if not actual touching. So I think we'd want to ask them specifically about that.
Thank you.
Rich?
With regard to the animal welfare assessments not being fully implemented, is it just the significant life events changes, or is it the regular annual assessments that they're missing?
I think it was mostly with the significant life events, but we can zero in on that with the question.
Brandy?
It says that there is a complete an absence of a DEI plan. I feel like in this day and age, that's almost unheard of. So was there nothing? Was there no thought? Was there any type of consideration?
I think they were interpreting that rather loosely, and they were just had an EEO statement, and they were using that as their DEI. They don't understand the difference.
Thanks.
Stacy?
From the photos, it was kind of unclear. The rust that's observed in the sea lion holding room it looked pretty superficial. Is this a pervasive thing? Was there any indication about that?
Well, I think sometimes, when a place shows very well, then you have some spots that just stand out. So I don't think it was prevalent throughout the facility.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, then I think we can invite them in for the hearing.
And everybody, I just want to remind you guys that this room's kind of big, and we want to make sure that they can hear us clearly, so don't forget to speak up.
Good morning. My name's...
Hold on.
I wasn't sure if I was going to be here, so I'm like...
Good morning, Windy River Aquarium. Welcome. Glad to have you here with us today.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Eric Rose. I'm the CEO and president of Windy River Aquarium.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Adrienne Roland. I'm the COO of the Windy River Aquarium.
Welcome, Jeff White, University of Rochester.
Jeff Saylor, Toledo Zoo. Jim Berhaney, Bronx Zoo.
Good morning. Brandy Smith, National Zoo.
Dwight Lawson, Oklahoma City Zoo.
Malin White, North Carolina Aquariums. Good morning.
Amos Morris, Milwaukee County Zoo. Good morning.
Sherry Bermudez, AZA.
Craig Piper, WCS. Good to see you, Eric.
Sammy Lewis, AZA. Welcome. Good morning. Scott Terrell, Disney Parks and Resorts.
Mike Murray, Monterey Bay Aquarium. Morning, Stacy Johnson, Roger Williams Park Zoo.
Tom Demas, Tennessee Aquarium.
Chris Stewart, Belmont Aquarium.
Jen Denon, AZA.
Luis Padilla, Juana's Henry Dorley Silver Aquarium.
Chris Warner, Zoo New England.
Thank you.
Thanks, and welcome again. Eric and Adrian, as you know, the commissioners have the full inspection report. We also have the written response to the areas of concern that you provided us. We'd like to give you the opportunity now to give us any updates on activities subsequent to your written response.
Very good. Would you like to go first? You want me to go first?
I will defer to you.
Very good. Thank you. I think one of the most important ones is the animal welfare assessments that was called out. And, the last 5 years, we've been, like everybody else with COVID, doing our level best to do it. But we really took the inspections feedback to heart and made some really large structural changes. First, we've reached out to our AZA partners for best practices and seeing who in other aquarium world is doing very, very well with that. And a couple of learnings from that. One is that we were not necessarily doing all the recording that we should be. A lot of it is about the documentation side. The animal welfare assessments are very much embraced by the staff. So what we've done is with our robust Wi-Fi network, we've been able to deploy tablets with the staff to leverage the capabilities of the TRACS data management system. So when the staff are in the field, they actually get to record all of their animal welfare assessments right there. And we've seen a very, very large increase in those assessments being completed and, more importantly, being thoroughly documented. We've also updated what we're assessing to include life events and the environmental assessments that were specifically called out. Would you like to add any more?
Additionally, we've worked on mitigating some of the surface rusts that you all saw. In fact, we have some updated pictures if you'd like to pass those around. And in regards to the DEAI, we do recognize that it is an important component to a facility of our stature. And as such, we are going to hire a consultant in order to bring in that element to our aquarium and really push that initiative forward.
Yeah, and to add the DEAI, one of the benefits of being part of the AZA organization in the last few years, there's been this very much remarkable effort by the association to support its members with DEAI. And to be frank, we haven't necessarily embraced that as much as we should have, being a city and government-run entity. So we reached out to the committee, who had an immense amount of resources, and referred us to a couple of other facilities that were best practices. And we kind of got a very complex situation settled very, very quickly, and hence some strong referrals for the consultants we're going to be bringing in to help us do that program. We've established a committee. Both of us sit on that committee, so we have executive leadership directly involved with that, and then we're looking to bring the subject matter experts in, as well as having a broad representation of staff.
Okay. Are those all your updates?
Let me check. There was some commentary on the salaries, and I'm pleased to announce that with this year's budget, we did get the city's compensation review completed, and we have rolled out a 5% increase of merit raises across the organization, with a few isolated events where we discovered there was some comp discrepancies, and we've actually done one-time adjustments with those specific individuals, anywhere from an additional 7% to 12% to close that gap that were just job shifts, job changes. So I'm very confident right now with that merit raise adjustment and the one-off changes that will be on par with our peer set AZA institutions.
All right. Thank you very much for those updates.
My pleasure.
We'll now open it up to questions from commissioners. Mike? And then Jeff.
It's really nice to see how you take care of the salaries, and particularly taking extra care of the frontline staff. But as you know, salaries, salary structures, and pay schedules are very dynamic. And what's your plan to make sure you're not sitting in front of us in 5 years with another concern being raised, that you've fallen back behind changes in the local and the profession's pay schedule?
answer that? You want me to- I'll take it. Great question. In the city structure, we have comp reviews every 3 years, and that's mandated. I think during the COVID times, we did not do that during that time, so we're out of cycle by like 6 years, if you would. So our plan is our normal merit raise process on an annual basis happens in the beginning of the year, and I'll commit to the additional normal 2-3% for inflation. But I'm very confident that we'll have in 3 years' time another compensation review of which we'll be using local data as well as AZA data to ensure that that is done, thoroughly done, and will be on an ongoing basis.
Jeff Wyatt?
Thank you for being here. Welcome. A concern brought up from the committee, even from the last visit, were drills. And since it was mentioned at the last visit and still is presently a problem even before COVID, could you help us understand, since it's not a new standard, what went wrong?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wyatt. Again, full transparency, we fell short on that, and we're going to make some changes. We have a fairly robust safety program within our organization, and the drills being structured with that were not part of that safety program historically, and they were completely just missed and oversight. Things get in the way. So what we've done is we've restructured that to include our director of animal care, who's responsible for those drills, to be on our safety committee review meetings that happen quarterly. So now I will have full transparency, as well as Adrian, our COO, with those drills. So if they are not happening, they will be brought up within the normal course of our OSHA and safety programs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Scott?
So Eric, you gave us an update on your welfare assessments. It sounds like you're now in a place where you're doing your assessments, but doing the assessments is only really half of the standard. It's really the what do you do with those assessments? So can you give us an update on after the assessments are done, how do you track needs for enhancements or improvements? What's that process after the assessments are done?
Very good.
Thank you, Scott. So in addition to our Animal Welfare Committee, which meets quarterly, they review each individual assessment in order to ensure that, one, it was completed appropriately and meets the standard, but also to track, right? So there's a tracking mechanism moving forward so that they can see if it's a life event versus just a regular assessment. And so that way it's more transparent to the entire committee, and all of those notes are also shared with the entire animal care staff because we feel that we should be very inclusive with them, not only in the assessment portion of it, but also the outcomes and the changes that we've made going forward to ensure that those, if there is a negative assessment, that we have a way to improve it, and then we document that as well.
Got Jeff and then Stacy.
So congratulations on moving so quickly with your DEAI program. Can you tell me how you're choosing people to be on that committee and are there terms of service?
Yeah, great question. No, they're not terms of service. We're not putting that much rigor before that. But first and foremost, we wanted broad representation across the organization, both vertically and horizontally, different departments and so forth. We weren't specifically looking at individuals with certain ethnic or economic circumstances, but we wanted a broad diversity of perspective on this committee, as well as individuals, which is really critically important in this situation or in this topic, is individuals that were passionate about the topic and actually had some budding leadership skills to influence the broader organization. So one of the things that Adrian and I particularly looked for is our up and coming leaders for tomorrow. Like myself, I got started in doing these type of committees, and I'm looking for those individuals in our organizations that can not only contribute to DEAI, but can influence the organization as a whole.
Thank you. Stacy and then Brandy.
Morning. One of the things that you were commended for was the robust conservation plan. Can you tell us some of the particular points of pride that you had, and particularly for me, how is that conservation culture spread through the organization?
Okay. So again, it's at all levels, right? So really implementing from your frontline staff to your gift shop staff to bringing it all the way up to the CEO and the COO. And so conservation is part of our DNA, as it were, right? And so we really need to ensure that that robust plan is not only communicated among our members or our facility, but among our membership and among our community, so that they can have that continued support going forward for those initiatives that are not in their backyard, right? That's always the first question. Why aren't you working on this species when you're working on this species over here? And so we really need to be able to articulate that to them in a way that makes sense. And then I apologize, I forgot the second part of the question.
So what is what are the things that you guys are most proud of
within that plan? Absolutely. So one of the things that we are most proud of is our aquarium was one of the founding members of the Aquatic Collection Sustainability Committee. And so that really brings conservation in two folds. It's also about our sustainable populations within our aquariums. And so working within the committee, we've developed a number of working groups that look at things like welfare and longevity, but also larval programs. Can we start aquaculture within our zoos and aquariums in order to have sustainable populations? We also work closely with our SAFE programs, Sharks and Rays. There's a number of shark breeding programs, but we also have reintroduction programs now for zebra sharks in Indonesia. So those types of things where we're working collaboratively with other zoos and aquariums within our community, and then of course within our own organization, has really made us feel very proud that we can offer this to our community, but also to the larger community of AZA.
Randy?
Stacy, you took my question, but I'll ask a follow-up. So I add my congratulations on your conservation program. We all want to make a difference, but one of the biggest challenges is to determine if we are actually doing that. So I'd just like to ask a little more. How do you set goals, measure success, and then adjust as you go forward?
In general or specifically with the aquatic
conservation.
Overall? Yeah, very, very good. Well, I think most of you, or should be all of you, are familiar with the sustainability program, and that has metrics based in there with the sourcing, collection, and the reproduction that we're doing in our facilities as far as outputs going, being able to say those animals now are not coming from wild populations. So we can quantify and qualify that very, very well. The other piece to this is we do surveys with our guests, and we call them brand surveys internally, but within that are conservation messages, conservation and science questions. Did you learn something when you were at the aquarium? Did we instill a sense of change? Do you go home and make differences in your activities and behaviors? And we survey that on an ongoing basis. One of the things that Adrienne did not bring up, I'd like to have really mentioned because I'm really proud of it with her team, is with the aquatic sustainability work that we're doing. It was a program that was very easy for the staff to get around. And I think many of us see this in our own organizations. We do a lot of great conservation work. Many times it's very hard to get the staff, frontline staff engaged, the retail people, the food and beverage people, our associates on the floor working with our guests, and frankly also the back of house finance, HR, and those back of house functions. And because of the nature of the aquatic collection sustainability, we have done a lot of internal rollouts as a sense of pride, and we've seen this come through in our employee surveys that we do annually, that the employee surveys in the past, the staff would never really comment on our conservation activities, even if we're doing, because they weren't aware. But now we see across the organization, the staff are commenting specifically about this program. And we would say that's a win because now these staff are going out, not only talking with all of our guests, but they're talking with members in the community, their families and so forth. And that's elevating the image of the aquarium overall.
Great, thank you.
I've got one last question. Another thing that the visiting committee commended you for was your robust education plan, and especially noted that you had strong evaluation programs. 5 years ago when we were here, that was one of the lesser concerns, that you weren't doing evaluation. Can you help us understand the path and how you developed that program? Because it's great to see it turn around and become a strength.
Yeah, honestly, this is an area I'm not as familiar with it as I wish I was. I wish I had our director of education. But once again, we took the feedback from the commission to heart, and we reached out to other aquariums and saying, hey, what are you doing? And I think it was a resource issue. We actually repositioned our education department and hired a director of education to drive that program, of which in the past we were very focused on the programming side of it and the operation side of the education programs, but not as thoroughly on the assessment side of it. So with that, our new director of education has implemented an assessment, both qualitative, quantitative. They've worked with some third-party statistical consultancies to help to make sure that the feedback we're getting from not only the teachers, but the students are continuous improvement. We get to take that feedback back and then modify our programs for an outcomes-based result of the education programs, which is what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time with us this morning. We will let you go down the hall to the post-hearing room, and we'll join you there shortly.
Thank you, Adrian. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion? Chris, I'll move to accredit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accredit. Discussion? Phelan?
I'm not allowed to make a motion, but I might suggest a progress report on a couple of the items, particularly the DEAI program, if you all feel like adding that to your motion.
Okay.
Can we have update on the welfare assessments as well?
All right, so people who moved in second, you're okay with those adjustments? Yes, I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Other questions?
Clint, do you want those progress reports?
I think 1 year would be appropriate for both of those.
Yeah, it seems like they are well underway with both of those things, and realistically, it will take some time to implement, so I think a year is adequate.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the progress report in 1 year on the welfare assessments and on the DEAI. Okay? All in favor? Any opposed? No abstentions? Okay, that carries. We'll go down and visit with them and give them the results.